Hi, this is Isaac from Turn Sounds. The next time you pass someone on an escalator, high five.
Welcome to Just Keep Walking. We're a podcast focused on the Walking Dead TV show, and today you're in for quite the show featuring a very special guest. So, I'm your host Ben, joined today by
Liam.
And I am Isaac.
Fantastic. And our guest today, so he started work as a camera operator on the first season of The Walking Dead, then made his way to the role of director of photography for pretty much the majority of episodes from season 4 until around the start of season 8, when he then moved over to be co-executive producer on Fear the Walking Dead. And he's directed a whole pile of episodes, some really outstanding ones, including The Grove, start to finish, How It's Gotta Be, Evolution, Morning Star, and the list goes on. There's a whole lot there. So welcome and thanks so much for joining us, Michael Satrazemis.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Absolute pleasure. So could you start us off maybe just by telling us a bit about the role of director of photography versus the role of being a director on an episode? What's kind of the difference between those two, and to someone who didn't know too much about it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, listen, director of photography, you're in charge of the look of the show. I think, because directing isn't a full-time job, the most you could ever possibly do directing in a television show is once every third episode, because you have to prep an episode while they're shooting one, then you shoot one, then you're going to go edit it afterwards. And that would probably still kill you, even if you did one out of every three.
Wow.
The director of photography, it's very important that the director of photography takes over the look and a consistency of, of how you want it to look. And then the language that you try to shoot within. You want your show to have a style and have an idea and a sort of a filmic language. And I think, because the director of photography is going to be one kind of, current position throughout, that he or she needs to try to, to keep that, so that, when people watch it, especially nowadays, everyone binge watches. Everyone watches a 1 through 16, in an episode. You want it to look like, part of the same story. You want it's really a 16, hour feature is what, you hope that your show ends up being like in the end. So, and you want it to, to look the same. So, a lot of directors are going to bring in really good ideas. And then I think, directing it, is, obviously taking the story and hatching it, and, all the emotions and everything else. And that's your goal.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Is it at all commonplace? And I know it'd be like a crazy amount of work for you to do, but do you ever do the same at once? You might be set to direct an episode, but you really heavily want the focus to be in a particular shot or captured a certain way. So would you ever do kind of both at the same time, or is that stepping on someone else's job of the day?
Well, yeah, listen, there's unions and there's all those other things.
Right.
But in the theme and the idea of what you're talking about, I mean, when you move up to directing, I took all the aspects of the director of photography that I love into that area. I think that, in your best day, as a director, your cuts. You want to know every cut. You want to see your, film, your movie, your episode cut together in your mind, and you try to shoot to that best cut. And then obviously you will adjust. Some things will get better, and sometimes you just won't have enough time anymore, and you'll have to eliminate a few of those shots. But for me, that's in the way my memory works. I remember things in shots, so I bring that still to the element. The lighting wise, I try not to get too involved in. I don't think it's your place as a director to to overly stomp onto someone else's. Plus, there's enough to do.
Yeah.
So difficult enough. You'll never get it right. You should really not try to do someone else's job as well. So, but I bring a lot of composition is a big thing to me. What size people are in frame, and when you go into the close-ups, and on what parts of dialogue. I think that that's a language in filmmaking that I think is really, really important, and I put a lot of emphasis in it.
That's cool.
Awesome. So as director of photography, have there been any particular standout episodes that you remember that you really enjoyed finding creative ways to capture, or any particular challenging ones you've found?
I mean, everything on The Walking Dead is challenging. Trying to acquire it, was challenging. I mean, sometimes it felt like we were fighting for our lives too. So it's a very method show. It felt like here in the apocalypse, trying to tell a story.
Right.
I mean, like we had I don't remember what. Right after the episode, I directed the mid-season finale when they were in Alexandria and the tower fell and they got flooded. The following episode coming out of that was All Nights, was the one Nicotero directed. And we hadn't, we hadn't shot an entire episode that's basically All Nights when they, lit the lake on fire and, and that whole, Alexandria is not it's not a huge community, but it's a pretty big stretch of streets. And that night battle, was the entire circumference of all of it. Trying to light that for night where it didn't look horrible was really a challenge, just physically, just how we were going to not shoot our lights and not try to move our lights, because the goal was to light that up. We had balloon lights that we were dragging around and, for Phil. And then I had, LRXs in the corners, really big beam spotlights, and a mile away we're lighting up half of that town at night.
Wow.
And then some soft boxes overhead, and just the technical challenge of how we could just let people run up and down the streets and try not to cut to keep that action going and just have that area lit up was a pretty big challenge.
And you have done a really good job with that. Like, it's
Absolutely,
the fact that it's not something I've even thought about before. Like, when there's a night scene, it just looks like it's nighttime, and you don't question, how things are being lit. It just looks natural. So yeah, that's a really good job done with that.
Yeah,
one.
well, something that the apocalypse has a lot of challenges that way, just because you can't waste fuel. So, and there's not electricity.
Yeah.
So we didn't have, you're missing some of the tools that you get, as a director of photography or as a filmmaker. Normally you're going to put a little candle in the backlight somewhere, something bright, and have an edge light from a lamp that's not even on the set that, like you can justify the lighting. But in the apocalypse, you have to go as minimal as possible. Otherwise you're breaking out of what the survivors would do. They wouldn't waste batteries. They wouldn't waste fuel. They wouldn't waste light. So if you're sitting somewhere, you would use the bare minimum amount of light that you need so that you can continue to have light, for all those days. So at night, it was always a challenge because we couldn't put spotlights everywhere and, and beams, just because we didn't have power in a lot of these places, and nor would they use that kind of power at night when everyone should be asleep. So.
Yeah.
Did you find that that some of the shots in Alexandria was sort of like a sigh of relief then, like having a little bit of electricity there, and we can sort of use this?
Yeah, it was. Of course, it was always nice to find some sort of camp that was living in, in delusion and didn't care, and that was just like, everything's okay in the apocalypse. Let's turn on all the lights, So yeah, it was nice. But I'll also say it felt really weird. Sometimes we went. It felt just wrong because, we knew the apocalypse so well. Mm-hmm. We were like, these idiots are, using all their power up, it felt weird, because we've been in this, just the show went on, we've been in the apocalypse so long, trying to define the rules of what the apocalypse are. And being in them, sometimes you would go to a new community and they would write for it to be a wasteful environment. You'd be like, oh, these idiots.
Yeah.
You guys are stupid. They're all going to die. But I'll turn on the damn lights. Yeah.
First ones to go.
Yep, always.
You had a question, you touched on it a bit before, Isaac, about fire and shooting around that. Did you want to bring that one up?
Yeah, so I don't know how much of a pain it is. Obviously, when the story calls for it, you got to do what you got to do. But everything as far as shooting with real fire and explosions and stuff on set, obviously the time for setup and reshoots and such. But when you're going to actually shoot that scene, are there any sort of special precautions that you need to take when you're working with fire, as far as like equipment, different lenses you got to use, and how you capture that, especially at nighttime as well? Yeah. Yeah.
So some of it's just logical things. If you're too close to the fire, your equipment will melt. So you back away from that. But we have a lot of safety precautions. if you light a candle on set, there's 2 dudes with, fire extinguishers that now have to watch that full time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, that's what safety has turned into. We try to make the industry a very safe environment. And, so if you're lighting a big fire or lighting a lake on fire,
Or like the whole of Alexandria.
there's 23 people to that, and there's gas lines underneath, and we've got to test them and burp them, and we talk about it, and there's people guarding the perimeter, even outside of the guys that are actually working the fire, and there's a lot involved in it. I think we've done so many of those gags and things. The scope of the show in big practical effects, because I think Walking Dead is its best when we create everything practically. That's been the goal. Is real is real. And I do think as the audience you can feel things when they're real. That they're not CG. There's no dragon flying around in the background. That everyone's by the fire, and a lot of times it's because the actors can truly feel the heat burning them, so their reactions are going to be accurate. But the more you do it, the more you exercise it, it doesn't seem like, oh, we're doing this dangerous thing again. It's like, okay, we're doing this. This will be like when we burn the barn, but this whole perimeter around, and and the show, we need to try to do better at all times. When you've done something once, or not repeating the same gag, but you're repeating the same kind of effect thing, you try to make it bigger. I mean, sort of like I don't know what I mean. They're all my 10 years of this last 10 years are kind of one big long episode. But when I think it was season 8, the mid-season, when I directed the one where we blew up Alexandria.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, like that was pretty impressive, and that was pretty insane. We did all of those explosions in one night.
Wow.
In one night shooting, and I've never seen anything like that. Daryl Pritchard, our effects guy, is a genius. But we went from one. We'd be like, boom, boom, blow up the solar panels, and I'd be like, cut. All right, next shot is going to lay out those things. We get over to the car, we blow that up. Okay, next shot over there, we're blowing a church up. Now we're blowing the 2 houses up. And we blew everything, blew everything up. Even, in half of his speech, I still blew up cars in the background, and it was really impressive. But it's it has to be meticulously planned out. I had a map of all of Alexandria where I marked every explosion where Chandler or Carl would be in relation to it, and distance, and where the camera would be, and I had it mapped out. And there's the only way to accomplish it, and then also to keep it safe. I had to show the very specifics. You get very specific when you're going to do things like that. So and then also with fire as a little bit of a cheat, you have a lot of lights that mimic fire. So if you don't need it in your frame, you continue the fire, and with actual just lighting, firelight with gel put on it to mimic fire, and that's that's how you minimize the amount of heat and just the amount of fire that you need.
Interesting. And am I right that that whole scene was shot on location in the actual community? So there were people sort of living around there. Would they be, waking up throughout the night hearing explosions going off?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real housing development that we kind of walled people in. I mean, I think now, I think there might be 1 or 2 houses where somebody is still living there, but at this point, I think when initially when we surrounded them and paid the mortgage or whatever was the deal, they thought it'd be a minute, or 2, probably not, the next 10 years of their life. I mean, or whatever the next 6 years of their life, We didn't bring, I don't think they thought Alexandria, they were like, oh, neat, we'll be part of of a movie, and then they were like, wait a minute, we can't cut our grass, and the snakes are moving in here, and when it's night and they're shooting, they light up our entire, I've stayed in Alexandria while I'm prepping in one of the brownstones, in one of Deanna's brownstones, that was the director's house. And those assholes, will put lights through my windows and everything all night long when they were shooting there. I'm like, so I can't imagine living there,
Yeah, wow.
I mean, they did it intentionally because they're assholes.
Just before we continue with the interview, we just want to let you know you can head to turnsounds.com if you have any questions or suggestions and want to get in touch with us. And you can also find out about our other shows there. So back to the show.
I'm a big fan of really using things practically because I think it really helps. You know, I mean, it helps in performances and everything else. And I'm big on performances. I'm big on, you know, I mean, we're trying to make a lie become the truth, you know, and so much so that we feel the emotion. So the closer everything else surrounding it is to, you know, to the truth, I think the easier it is to, you know, for the actors to try to make that, you
That's
know.
awesome.
And so, and, you know, and then, you know, I'm just old school, still like to feel the heat, you know?
Yeah.
You know, but there's a lot of times, you know, for time and money purposes, maybe you don't use it. You know, I mean, a lot of the trade-offs and things and decisions you make are made in prep, and it's about whether you'll have the time to accomplish what you want to do. And I think it's a very important part of prepping, you know, is to be a realist and you know, not just always going for, you know, what you think would be best and then screwing yourself out of, you know, being able to accomplish everything. You know, I think, you know, there's a lot of balance and, you know, but you have first ADs, you have a lot of people that help you with the math of everything. And then, you know, being on the show so long, you have a feel of what really truly can be accomplished and what can't.
It's awesome.
You know, but I always like going for it a little bit, you know. It feels good to be scared, you know. I like being nervous. It's a good place for me, you know.
I like it. I suppose my question was like, what was the biggest obstacle and how did you overcome it in terms of transitioning from director of photography into the directing episodes?
I get, you know what, I that's a really good question, and I do have an answer, and it was the hardest part in the transition, you know, because I think, you know, I mean, I was a camera operator for a long time. I've been around the exercise of editing and, you know, learning the language of the director's language, because I think editing is the black and white of filmmaking. When the shit's hitting the fan, that's the language you need to go to, and you need to be prepared because in the cuts and what you need to get to accomplish the scene, you know, what cuts, and, you know, that is the language that you can be very specific in.
Yeah.
So I had been exercising that. I had known that I wanted to direct. You know, you don't ever know how you're going to get wherever you're getting in this industry. It just happens one day, and, you know, and then you go like, oh, my next dream. I mean, better quickly dream up my next dream now that I'm living my dream. So I have a dream. But you know, I think in all the other positions, you're acquiring, you know, constantly acquiring, you know, because it's not 100% yours. Your name's not on that script. It's not, you know, as a director of photography, you're acquiring all day, acquiring. So the things you don't, you know, you don't really focus on because it's not your dream in the morning when you come in. You're facilitating something, and, you know, and you drive home and you look at all the amazing frames and the shots that you got, you know, and some of the, you know, performances that you got to see and feel. And you're excited about directing. At the very beginning, there's this immense sense of loss.
Wow.
It's the shots you didn't get, the things you couldn't acquire, the things that didn't go right, the thing like, and I didn't necessarily think about that. I wasn't prepared for that. So I had this weird feeling of loss. You know, you're not looking at the things you acquired and how amazing they are. You're like, the fucking shot I didn't get, you know, and this thing, and like, just something about this scene didn't land. I didn't feel the truth. Like it didn't hit me. I didn't get that gut punch of emotions, and, you know, and it's like this, you know, because you have in your head what is going to be the perfect scene. When it's not like that, you're dealing with this sense of loss, and I think that was weird. You know, it felt very odd. I wasn't ready for that feeling. I wasn't, you know, prepared for that, and it, you know, you get used to it. It doesn't ever quite go away, because you go into editing rooms, and, you know, and maybe your episode's over by 4 minutes, and you're going to get rid of a scene that you love, you think is amazing, but you know, you got to cut to time. That's, you know, that's part of the real tough thing about being, you know, on a cable show that has, you know, a certain amount of time, is that there's a lot of amazing material that I've shot over the years that, you know, that just never been aired. I mean, some of it, you know, made it to DVDs and things like that, but, you know, it is that getting over that feeling of loss, you know. Yeah.
Well, on the flip side of that, have there been, can you give us some examples of maybe scenes that you planned a certain way and they turned out a lot better than you had expected them to?
That's a good question.
But you know, I mean, I don't even know if you'll remember this, but there there's a scene with Andy, with Rick, and Ross, Aaron. You know, when they had the floating boats, the houseboat out on the lake, and I was directing that. And this simple scene that's kind of, you know, a conflict scene because, you know, Aaron's kind of calling Rick out, and they're just packing boxes back and forth, you know, but we got to keep them. They're packing, you know, they're trying to get off that lake. They need to get off and move it. But there's a serious scene that, you know, that really, when two people stop and have it out, they don't move. You don't move very much in real life. We don't do that. We stay locked in, try to bury our point behind everybody's eyes, you know, but it just didn't feel right at all. And so I was like, listen, I don't know how we're going to cover it, you know, I mean, because we're going to be on the backs of heads, and I don't have the time to cover it a million different ways and stop. But let's just get a pattern of packing these boxes and just, you know, let's make it an uncomfortable scene where you're having a very serious conversation, but maybe the intent isn't to lock the person down. It's just like slip it into their psyche while you're doing this job. And I thought, you know, they started doing it, and it just felt so effortless. And I felt it became more powerful because of the fact that it wasn't, you know, it was two people having a very serious conversation while on the move and moving through, and it made it a stronger scene to me. It meant a lot more for some reason, you know, because they stayed in this movement, because it made it feel a little bit awkward, you know, made it feel like you know, we're going to have this serious conversation, but I'm not going to, you know, we're going to continue to move forward. We're going to pack this shit up, and we're going to get this stuff out of here. But I'm going to bury this, you know, I'm going to slip this in between all the boxes. So, I mean, that's the one that comes to mind, you know, I mean, you know,
that's a great,
because it just became something bigger.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess speaking is sort of along the same lines of working with actors, can you tell us a bit about working with Xander, Berkeley and Stephen Ogg? Because you got to do, your episodes got to have a lot of scenes with Gregory and Simon,
yes.
their banter and stuff like that. What was it like working with that?
Well, both those guys are insane. They're insane. They're clinically insane. And both of them have this same kind of crazy, you know, energy to explore, to play around. And like, so a lot of our initial conversations, I'd come up in the middle of another episode, you know, to meet them or find them in a fitting or something. And they would start explaining to me about how I was, you know, we were in the hotel room the other night and we were working through some stuff. And then they both start reenacting scenes, and, you know, and I'm like, man, you guys were just drinking, weren't you? You know, I think, you know, with those guys, the best thing you can do is not define anything. You know, I mean, you find ways to work with actors, not try to define anything, not try to note things. Some actors, you want to hit the fine points in a scene, just give an A and a B and a C section, and to kind of pattern how you want the flow of it to go. And you try to say everything with the least amount of words as possible, so they don't have to really, you know, think about anything. They can just feel it. With those guys, you just wind them up and let them go. You try to not put a limiter on them, and then you do have to try to take them down a little bit, you know. But I think, you know, sometimes, you know, I mean, like with Og, he'll just naturally start going down, so you just let him explode out, and then you know, and then try to take it down, you know. But those two together is just a delight. Like that, the biggest problem with those two together is that you don't want to move on ever. Right. You know, so you have to be careful that you're not doing an extra take because you just want to see it again. That, you know, that you're not going to screw your day because you're enjoying, you know, what you're getting in that moment, you know. So I think that, you know, that it's more about regulating yourself, you know, than it is with them. And, you know, and then obviously you don't want it to grow too far out, you know, right. Square. And that, you know, they're very bright characters, and the Apocalypse was pretty grounded on, you know, on rugged truth, you know, we try to. So, you know, you have to be careful that the two of them together don't get too bright.
Yeah, interesting. Well, you definitely did strike that balance well. I think we found, like, I mean, they're always hilarious together, those guys, but there's always a bit of that underlying, you know, Simon's threatening Gregory, so however much they're laughing, then you also don't know if he's about to like pull a knife on him or what's going to come next. So it definitely seemed like that good balance of realism versus comedy and everything. So
with Og, you just didn't know. I mean, you never knew whether he was just going to stab him while smiling in his face. Like, take him out for a drink or shoot him in the face. You just don't know.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of like improvising and things like that on set, I suppose does that happen quite a lot? And just one specific scene I'll ask you about is in season 9, episode 12, Guardians, which you directed. There's just a very small scene with Daryl and Connie. They take down a walker, and Daryl's dog goes to grab the arrow and brings it back to him, and it just snaps when Daryl's trying to grab it back. I love little moments like that. They're just hilarious. Was that something planned, or did that come about naturally?
Yeah, the damn dog wouldn't take the thing out. He just kept biting it in half. He broke like 20 arrows, So it became, I mean, you can see it on their faces, the lightness and the goofing around, because it became, that's what it was in reality. We were like, should we try this again, or should we just try to figure something else out, And then first he wouldn't get it, and no offense to dog, it's amazing, but they're dogs. He's a dog, right. That's and he's a powerful jaw dog. So they broke it, and we were gluing them together. We ran out of like fresh arrows, so gluing them together, and then we finally found another one from the truck and brought it back, and then it was in there, and they broke it in half, and brought it over, and that was Norman. Norman was like, let's get Jesus Christ
bad dog.
And that's what it came out of. I mean, it was a total Norman improvised thing, and then the little playfulness between the two of them was, because they were both laughing their asses off. So, I mean, and they have a really great bond anyway, I think, But it's a lot of those kind of fun moments come out of something not going right, and nobody being able to keep their composure.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm so glad you left that in as well.
Thank God we got that moment, because we all laughed, and I was like, okay, you know what? It was supposed to be a serious moment, but I was like, I think we can move on. I think it became about Daryl and his dog.
Absolutely. You got another question there, Liam?
Yeah, absolutely. What's your fondest memory from working on the show overall?
Yeah, good one.
It's been so long. I have so many good memories. I mean, I think because this has gone on for a decade, because I keep living my dream, and then it keeps growing beyond where I ever even wanted to. I never thought about being, a producer, but I understand what producer director is, being the larger part of the whole. Directing I've always loved. I mean, it has been my ultimate dream. And the 10th year made me kind of nostalgic this year, just because, wow, we're into the 10th. Yeah. It has brought me all the way back to the very beginning. And I remember vividly, those season 1 moments, but, long before anyone said we were cool. In fact, when everyone on set, even the producers, were telling us, like, guys, stop being so excited. Like, this probably isn't going to do anything, show's not going to go, you guys are acting like it's going to blow up in the ratings, and, all these things. And, but, horror genre didn't do it. And back when, before anyone's, said we were great and the show was amazing, like, looking around at everybody and realizing, like, it really is special. We do have the right people around. We all felt like that. And everyone raising the bar, before you're fueled by millions of fans and everything else. This season 1, we were all this little punk idiots, looking at each other, going like, hey, you know what? Let's do this, let's do this. Well, I want to go run over there. I remember Andy and Norman and Bernthal, hey, why do we have to cut in here? Maybe I'll run over there and just choke him out. And I was the camera up there, and I was like, okay, well, I just won't cut. I'll just chase over there. And that's reckless. Like, it's not I'm not condoning that kind of behavior, but we did that kind of stuff, and I think it just kept going, and going. I remember, the first scenes with Melissa, and because she was kind of in the background for a lot of that, and then all of a sudden you have a scene, and you're like, I'm gonna cry. This woman is the greatest actress I've ever seen, and you just start. The more we kept going, oh, this is the real thing, this is going to be huge. This is we're telling powerful stories, larger than the genre scope. It's not about zombies. It's not, it's about humanity, and the heart and impending doom and
so good.
And, and evolution within the apocalypse, these big themes, and all the right people were there, and then, Nicotero was pulling out, zombies that looked like they really were going to kill you. And it was terrifying, it was just everything we were able to kind of, do everything and execute everything at such a high level. And we weren't reinforced with, you guys are great. It was just us going, hey, let's do this. This is where, this is a real opportunity. Really, all the right people have landed in all the right positions. So, that, that's not a particular memory, but it's a section. It's a very big memory, last 10 years of my life. And it's the beginning, the OGs and, just everyone believing in something.
Okay, that's awesome.
Long before it was reinforced by, all the accolades and those kind of things. And that, cool. To me, that's the heart of the show, and that's why it echoed out, because everyone really, really, really believed in it. And I think it's important as a filmmaker to try to create that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, that really does show how.
And to instill that,
I can imagine it wouldn't have blown up half as much if there wasn't that heart and that energy right from the get-go.
Yeah, it would have felt like the truth, again, it always just comes back to we're making a lie become the truth. And so much so that, millions of people that view it feel those emotions, they're not,
That's awesome.
but they're, it's a lie. The script is a written thing and everyone's playing parts, but they make it, so believable that it becomes the truth. And that's the goal. And if you don't have, an entire cast and crew, filled with people that believe in it, I don't think, it's hard enough. It's hard enough to, with as many variables as there are, filmmaking is hard enough to do anything that you're super happy with, but if you can't, get everybody to bring out their best, I don't know if you have a chance. So, I think that should be the ultimate goal, it should be have a great story, have a great story, and then get everyone to believe in it, and that, and the rest should fall into line. And, I think you always have to simplify everything in filmmaking. What do I need to get out of the scene? You got to go to the core, because it can so easily become so big that, it gets distracted. But, I think if you want to simplify filmmaking, have an amazing story, get the right people and get them to believe in it. And I think, at least you got a good shot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. I got one more shot related question, and I'm I'll try not to color your opinion on this one. I want to kind of ask, how do you feel about first person perspective shots, particularly things like obscured vision? We got Father Gabriel going blind, and blood in Daryl's eyes, or you got the poison ivy with Aaron and stuff like that. How do you like those sorts of shots? I don't know. Do you feel like they enhance the storytelling?
I don't know. I'm a big fan of not drawing the audience out. I think in my personal language for filmmaking, which changes depending on the script, because I don't think I don't believe that any of us should have a style. If you have a style, that means you can't tell every story. I think the story will have its own style. But the language that you choose to tell, I think it's big for me to put the audience next to the actor.
Okay.
To put them as close as possible to the actor. And then that means that I don't want to draw attention to a lot of the camera work and a lot of the shots. Perspective is a big deal for me. But I tend to not go too much into those specialty wacky shots thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Okay.
it was an idea, and it was a scripted idea. I did the Gabriel
Yep.
blind thing, and I think, and I thought it was, effective. But I think you also have to be very careful to not just jump out of telling the story in a 50-50
That's
and
it.
then jump into some vision. You have to be very careful that what you cut, you have to cut from his perspective, that, a dead centered close up into his point of view. Like there's an elegant way to kind of, transition into those kind of things, where you don't draw too much attention to the audience.
I'm so glad to hear you say it that way, actually, because particularly I felt like the Father Gabriel one was done quite well. It was very disorientating. We really felt sort of uncomfortable and unsure, like he was. Like, I think he was hit on the head, the nail on the head.
Perfectly.
Perfectly in that sort of sense, yeah. Other sort of ways, it does kind of, I feel, pull me out of it sometimes. So to hear you say that you actually have that focus, that's actually good to know. That's, very cool.
Oh, that's awesome. One thing I've found that sort of stands out in quite a lot of your episodes is, I don't know if you'd call them necessarily montage sequences. Some of them are montages. Others are, for example, the end of start to finish when they're all walking out covered in the guts, and it's just that slow motion scene with the music playing, no dialogue. For all those sort of scenes in particular, and the episodes in general that you direct, do you work with Ben McCreary, the composer, at all, or does he just take it and run with it from what you give?
Yeah, I actually don't, but Ben has, he has shined. Bear has shined when he in those moments. I think if for a composer or somebody, you orchestrate this cutting pattern and this sweeping slow motion, you open up to these strong, larger than life landscape things. I know that he's going to get that moment, but television's so fast and so quick. We don't get those moments. I mean, I've called him up to thank him, before. I've been like, I literally have to call him, I'm like, hey, Bear, Satrazemis, I'm like, oh, yeah, hey, and I'm like, listen, I just want to thank you because it's amazing, But I think, those moments are always going to be big, sweeping, scory moments. But I do have those moment in that moment where it's the split second thoughts. It's in somebody's look or one hesitation where they have this fear and they're trying to crush it down deep, which is all of them holding hands, leaving that patio covered in guts, I think the only way to for me to try to grab the split seconds is to slow it way down, because then the audience can see the whole complete thought, but not in this fragment of a second. I can take it, 1 second and stretch it out to 3 or 4 seconds and really take that, that it's because all it is a part of a breath inhaling and a look to somewhere, and they start moving away and then they crush it down. I want to grab that little second, but I want to stretch it out so the audience can really sit with it.
Yeah.
And that, that's kind of where that comes. I feel like it's a tool that I've found that apparently I must be repeating a lot if you're bringing it up.
Well, one other one that stands out, which is
the game a little.
Yeah.
Calling you out.
One which is probably one of my favorite scenes, say, from the series is so it's towards the end of season 7, the episode The Other Side, and it starts off in Hilltop with this beautiful montage of Maggie and Sasha. They're training up the Hilltop people. Maggie's leading things, and there's this really nice moment with Daryl and Maggie. She just brings him dinner, and not much is happening, but it's just this. You feel all the emotions, and that's just such an amazingly done scene. For something like that, do you get the script and it's already laid out as a montage, or do you choose how you want to approach something like that?
No, that had a bunch of scripted dialogue, or a little bit of it, and then it just turned into that, and it also turned into just wanting to be on his back and not wanting to see his face. I think sometimes seeing somebody sitting alone not seeing their face. You want to, as the audience, you want to see the pain they're in. You want to see their face. They're, like you want to feel that. But if you can linger in that shot longer, it seems to have a stronger emotion than being in a close up, just, shooting their face. So it kind of came out of that, Norman and I talking through things and we're talking about what we wanted that to be. And then, and then I came up with the idea of how I wanted to shoot it to kind of, to try to execute that emotion in its strongest form, So, some things are written as, as montage, I mean, the porch with everyone grabbing hands and, that was meant to be built out, also a lot, you can't talk. They couldn't really write dialogue when you're surrounded by walkers and that. As soon as the kid goes, mom, 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 you're like, oh shit, no,
you had one job, kid.
Shut up.
So that a lot of times, the dialogue's just not there because it would break us out of the rules of the apocalypse. So,
Right.
That I knew it was going to be that, and then I just really wanted to slow it down. I thought to grab those little fragments because I just tried to give everybody a thought.
Yeah.
Capture, while they're having that thought, and then crush it. So like I need to have this thought, let the steer come in and crush it, and then that kind of that was the repetitive, reoccurring kind of theme within the slow motion that I knew that would cut together. Something that just kept gaining strength until they started walking off, and then I had that little push in, that ends up on the kid when he says "mom, mom, mom," and that you were coming back to some pretty exciting, episodes. So,
that's fantastic.
I mean, some things you find, and some things were scripted, and I think every episode is so well written and so powerful. You try to find ways to bring it out, but and a lot of times it's just trying to execute it, in what you think is the best possible scenario.
Absolutely. Well, we've got one segment we do most episodes on the show where we each sort of pick a scene or just something that we really like from the show in the past. So I've pretty much, with those two scenes there, those are two that really stand out to me. But maybe Isaac and Liam, do you want to just give us some scenes that you really like that have stood out? And then Mike, we're interested to hear if you have any, I don't know, behind the scenes or any take on those that you can, give us some info about. So Isaac, what was
Scenes,
yeah. Well, we were talking a bit about the spaghetti one beforehand.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't know if it's one scene, but it's spread out throughout the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. We have this one soundbite we keep using on this show, which is just the...
And I fed him spaghetti.
When Negan says to Rick, all of this, I took him home. I can't remember what the exact line was. He's pretty much saying, I've done all of this while you've been away. And on top of all of that, I've made your kids spaghetti. Like, can't you at least be grateful for all of these things? I've taken care of these threats. And I don't know, the character of Negan and the way that he's... I don't know how much you've worked with Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah, that's it.
Quite a bit.
Oh man, he is such a delight on the screen, and it's kind of counterintuitive because I like him so much as an actor. We're supposed to dislike him in those particular scenes and seasons, but I couldn't get past how much I liked what he was doing with that character. That he was just such a likable villain. And so just all of those, pretty much pick a Negan scene, and I'm just enthralled every time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, Jeffrey himself, he's such an amazing person. He's such a bright light. He's, he's so charismatic. I mean, you love him. You love him. I love him. He's an amazing, amazing guy. And what he can't play a character, I don't think, without that coming underneath. It's just an essential part of Jeffrey that, and I think it was nice because in the comic book, Negan was really just the worst and the worst and the worst and the worst. And the worst. Like you just couldn't even do it properly. So I think it's nice to see that. And I think we always play with a lot of themes of what these people were before the apocalypse, that not everybody, was exactly as you see them now. There's still this undercurrent of who they used to be. Not everybody was as bad, and not everyone's had to do all the things they had to do ever, before the apocalypse. So, but Jeffrey Everybody's always going to charm your socks off, and because of that, I think a little bit of Negan, it's going to leak through, it's going to seep through, and Negan, no matter how bad he is, he's still doing the dance, and he's still kind of charming.
That's it. The lean back as well.
Horrible person. Although he's kind of redeeming himself. He's not doing so bad now.
Yeah. That's the best thing to come from that character arc for me. So happy when he got spared. Oh, man.
You see him just a completely different person as he is now in the series to when he was first introduced. It's been a really good arc. Hey,
100%.
What would be a standout scene for you?
The standout one that comes to mind is when we're first getting the introduction to the Whisperers, and we've got the Horde chasing. I believe it's Daryl, Dog, Aaron, and Jesus,
Eugene.
and Eugene, yes. And they separate a little bit. Daryl's going to try and disrupt the Horde, basically. He hides on that little shack, throws off the little crackers, the firecrackers, and the Horde starts turning, but then it shifts its direction and starts chasing down the group again.
It's cool.
Oh, I loved that scene.
It was horrifying. I mean, that whole episode was a lot of fun for me, just because it felt, like classic horror. And that was the goal. We talked about a lot of what can we do? Because it reminds me a little, it's like you want to play like Rosemary's Baby is one of my favorite kind of horror movies because nothing happens till the end. You think maybe she's going insane, but it's like what you can do that you don't see. And I think that's in classic horrors. A lot of a horror is in what you don't see. We spend a lot of time pointing out what's happening, but sometimes it's really nice to just not have it be there. And I felt like that was that kind of episode, where everyone's maybe losing their minds. They think that the walkers are evolving, maybe, or maybe they're not. But till we get to the cemetery and Jesus gets it, and then you realize But it was neat. So we played around with a lot of just that kind. The little things were big in that episode. And I played a lot of shots. The smoke, the cemetery. We just went to old school, limited sight distances. But it felt spooky. That was a really fun story to tell.
Yeah, so well done, Had. It was fun to watch. It was definitely, once we finished watching it, we all kind of said that was like, this show's getting scary again. It was something different from what we'd seen in a while. So that was really well done.
Absolutely, hands down my favorite episode from the entire series.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Gee, okay.
I love that episode.
Ooh, thanks.
With talking about hordes and stuff like that, when you've got a scene with hundreds of walkers, you got all these things on set. When you need to do another take, how long does that usually take to reset something like that?
It takes a minute. It depends on what time of year it is.
Yeah, right.
It takes a little bit longer when it's summer, and it's 90 degrees. So.
Do they all keep in character?
You got to water them up. You got to do. It depends on kind of how intricate it was. Like the opening shot of that episode when I was going through the Horde and they're crisscrossing, and then we kind of push in, and I go from 24 frames to the regular in the teaser to the regular speed, and you see the walker kind of start looking over his shoulder, maybe. That one was real difficult because I wanted to track some walkers and be on their faces. So the reset of all the crosses, because I was on a Technocrane kind of pushing in, so we had to get people to avoid the camera but then duck down and not get hit with it going through. And so it was an intricate shot, and I didn't want to cut out. I wanted it to be in one shot that ended, with the over cranking and slowing it down, and you think maybe that, just get right to the point where you think, is that walker turning around and looking, and then poof, cut out of it. And that's kind of the tone of it was the tone of the episode. So you try to find sometimes you kind of tonally, that last impact shot in the teaser that'll kind of let the audience know what kind of ride they're going to go on.
That,
a little hint.
Can I quickly go into that scene quickly? Just because there's a question that's been nagging me for ages.
Ooh.
Is that the Whisperer that did Jesus over? Because I was looking at his clothes, I'm like, it could be, I don't know. But like you say, there's also a part of you that's like, is that actually a Whisperer, or is that just...
It's supposed to be. It's not that that individual, you know, but because one was a stunt person and one was not. But
Yeah.
yeah, pretty smart.
Exclusive.
Yes. There we go. You got
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Heard it here
I don't like
first.
taking things away from the audience, but you know, when you land one, when you stick one, you stick it. You landed it.
Absolutely.
Pretty spot on.
Awesome. I am so excited right now.
All the questions being answered. Awesome. Well, we're coming up to about now, so we won't keep you too much longer. I know you're busy. You're all right if we shoot you one more question?
Can I have one
Yeah,
more
of course.
quick one as well?
Oh, yeah. Well, you go for a quick one, and then I'll do a quick
Okay,
one after that.
mine really can be just a one-word answer if you want it to be. If you want to go into it, up to you. But I'm just going to say, favorite camp.
Maybe Oceanside.
Okay.
Oh,
like it.
good pick.
Okay.
You know, it was you know, that one was special to me. It was, you know, it was really abstract and offbeat, but I liked it. It's not completely explored enough, but I just thought it was neat. It just felt off the path, you know.
Yeah.
Felt like an abstract one. You know, I mean, the others you could kind of see how they would all get formed. That one had a, you know, pretty dark story, and you just, you know, you want to root for them. They're super underdogs, you know.
Yeah.
They found a way to survive at the beach.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's all for me. Yeah.
Box there.
Yeah. No, and you got to do that episode where we're first introduced to Oceanside. So yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, a little biased. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good plan. Yeah. One thing I sort of heard this hinted to in one of the audio commentaries. Maybe you could tell me a bit more about how it works. Do you do a director's edit of all the episodes that you do, and then the editor does his version as well? How does that sort of process work?
Yeah, well, if you get an editor's cut first, which is an assembly.
Okay.
You know, it's not meant to be cut tight, and you know, it's meant to be stretched out scenes. You know, most of the time it's running way too long. Hey, that's my dog. Hey, Johan, go sit down. Yeah, he's like, no way.
Okay.
Here, this is Johan.
Hey. Hi, doggy.
He's over me talking with you guys now. But you do an editor's cut, and you get that, and then I do my cut, the director's cut, and then I turn the episode in, and it's basically the producers, your showrunners, you know, your executive producers that then get to cut, you know, and get to recut. And you know, normally I leave my episodes a little bit long because I don't want to cut to time too much because it's like drowning your own children in the bathtub. Sounds dark, but I've been in the apocalypse a long time, so it's got a little bit darker over the years.
It fits the theme.
Well, hey, we're going to wrap it up there. Yeah, Michael, we just really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on, for taking the time out to chat with us, and obviously for all the work you put into the show as well. It's just, yeah, it really means a lot to us.
Yeah,
thank you for
guys,
all that
look,
you've done.
I really appreciate it. It was a good time. You know?
It's been a blast, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys for thinking of me.
No, thanks so much for coming on. Hey, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe we can do it again.
I look forward to your work.
Yeah, we'll hold you to that.
All right, see you guys.
See you later.
See you later. Nice to meet you.
Hey.
Oh man, that was awesome.
Wow. Okay.
Crikey. I mean, yeah, that was amazing.
Absolutely. I'm glad I actually got to vocalize to the person who directed the episode that it was my favorite episode from the whole series.
Dang, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
That's
cool.
so good.
Yeah.
What are some of the takeaways from that?
Well, Woodbury isn't his favorite camp. Disappointing.
The Whisperer was at the start who killed Jesus. I completely botched that entire sentence right there, but you
No,
know
you
what?
got the message across.
Yeah, you heard it here. Just keep walking.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sweet. Yeah, well, any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
Very excited.
Oh man, I could have kept talking, like
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
trying not to hijack the whole thing. I like, everything he said, I was like, oh, what about this? What about this? So,
No, it was the sort of thing where, like, you see the time going along, it's like, oh, no, we're halfway through already.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, hopefully he'd be keen to come back maybe another time. And, yeah, well, particularly we'll see if he directs some stuff in season 11. Maybe it'd be cool to talk about that and see how we go. But, yeah, we got some other potential interviews lined up. We'll just wait and see how they go logistically before we announce anything. But yeah, you can be excited about that. And yeah, I just think it's always really interesting to hear from behind the show that we've really enjoyed, and both the creative process and logistically, like weird, camera stuff on set. How do you light a nighttime scene with no electricity in the apocalypse? So there's really interesting. And yeah, there we go. Thanks so much, Michael, for coming on. If you're listening to this back.
Yeah, and as you kind of already reiterated, this is like definitely a great example of people want to be on our shows. Like not just Keep Walking, but like Turn Sounds in general. Yeah. Email us, turnsounds@gmail.com. If you've got a perspective on the thing we're talking about, especially if you're like one of the dang like showrunners or the directors, like hit us up, please. Love to have you. But
even if you're not, if you're just the average Joe who wants to voice his opinion, please, just let us know. We'd love to hear from you. We love just chatting and connecting with other fans.
Absolutely.
One guy I'll give a shout out now. I've just been making friends with him on Instagram. Is so it's the Walk-In Dead SS. So no G in walking. So yeah, that's on Instagram if you look him up. But we've been doing actually, if you go to our page, what is it? Just Keep Walking podcast on Instagram. He's tagged us. We've done a few like collab posts, and we're working together doing like top 5 soundtracks from each season. So yeah, cool guy, and I just love connecting with other fans like that.
Yeah,
hey, it's good fun. So do you want to just plug Turn Sounds, and then we'll call it a day? Well, you already kind of did, but maybe just the website.
Okay, yeah. www.turnsounds.com. Of course, you don't need to worry about the W's these days, but turnsounds.com, that's where you go to view all of our shows. We're expanding, more content for less quality. That's just how it is, baby.
And on that note, I've been your host, Ben.
I'm Liam.
And I am still, I'm still Isaac.
Questioning it.
Nice.
Great.
Thanks for listening, and catch you next time.